Good morning, everybody. I'm sorry we couldn't get on Facebook Live, but we are doing this recording so you can see how to do this project. It is a lot of fun. I am changing it up a little bit because Leanie does that. Here is the design that we're doing. This is for the digital for September, and it's on an apron, which is wonderful. But I decided I don't want a second apron, so I'm going to actually do this on a shirt. And so, because I thought it would be fun, if I'm at a party, I can say I like to party, but I'd rather party and stay home, and so I thought it would be funny. So I'm going to actually do this on a t-shirt, and then, so I want to show you all the different ins and outs to sew this on a t-shirt. So I'm going to change cameras. And let's see if we can move it down to this camera here. So what I've done is, the design is a 5x7, and I have done what I normally do, where I use, this is a water-soluble stabilizer. I went ahead and drew around my hoop, and I put it on the back so it's sticky here. You're going to need, and if you look at this here, you have the gray for the background, which is what I have, and then I have the gray or the turquoise for my sewing machine. So those are the two items that you're going to need for this. And I also have my t-shirt, and of course it's pink. Knowing Leanie, you know that it's pink. But what I have done is I've put polymesh, fusible polymesh, on the back of my t-shirt, and I just put it all the way across it and iron it on. That makes it so that it's no longer a knit, it actually acts as a woven. I have folded it in half and pressed it, and then I've folded down about 4 inches from the top. That's about where I'd like it to be when I sew this on. So I'm going to go ahead and take you over to the machine, and let's do that. And I just put the gray thread in. Normally I use water-soluble thread, but I want to see this a little bit better, and I thought for the camera's sake for everybody. I have put in, on this design, you get a vertical and horizontal line together. I'm going to go ahead and thread my needle. And I am actually putting that on here twice on my machine. Once for the placement of my shirt, and then I'm going to be once again for the placement of my gray piece. So I put it on here twice, and then the design. So I'm going to go ahead, and first thing we're going to do is stitch out the placement for the t-shirt. Okay, so what it's done is it's stitched out the placement line. So I'm going to take my t-shirt, and I'm going to put it right on where I folded to find my center mark. Now I know that my design is going down this way. My neckline is going the other way, so I'm going to go ahead and pull that up here, and I got it through, let's see, this way. So I make sure that it's across here, and then I want to open it up, and I'm going to go ahead and open my shirt up now a little bit. Let's see if I can do this without getting too much out of camera. Okay, so you can see I'm just pulling it through, so I've got a lot of space. And then I want to make sure that my line is still straight, and it is, so that I have space for it on here. And I want to make sure that my t-shirt is out of the way. So the next thing it's going to do, and I'm going to let it go ahead and do this, and make sure that my rest of my t-shirt's out, is I'm going to stitch one more time that line, and normally I would do that with water soluble thread. Again, I forgot to bring it, so I'm just going to use the gray thread. It really doesn't matter because the gray piece of fabric is going right over the top of it. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch out that one more time. And of course, while I was doing that, I accidentally unthreaded the machine. So I'm going to reverse it back a little bit and then go ahead and stitch that out. And that way I can tell definitely I'm okay. I'm straight where I belong. And then I've got my piece of gray fabric that I'm also now, I folded in half. And I think I'm going to take this out of the machine for a second so you can see this. Hopefully you can see that. No, yeah, you can. So I've taken my fabric and folded in half. Oh, by the way, I added Fusion Fleece to it as well as the SF101, which is what they suggested. And I'm just going to, again, find the center of my little square. Make sure that it's centered on here. And then we'll put it back into the machine, and it's going to go ahead and stitch all the way around. And as long as I'm here, I'm going to let it be. I think it's going to be fine. And let it stitch around the outside edge. I could take this down, but since I'm right here, hopefully you can see this. So it says not to trim it at this time, so I'm not going to trim it. And though that was a placement line, I'm going to go ahead and skip it because I already put it down. And so I'm leaving the gray in because now it's going to do the stitching for the bottom of my machine. So I'm going to go ahead and leave my gray. Hopefully you can see that. Pretty quickly. This takes about 3 minutes. I just thought it would be really cool to put this on a t-shirt, and because everybody knows how much I love sewing, and that's where my party is. And this is really cute. You can always change your words on here if you want to. It's just a really cute design. I do like that I put the Fusion Fleece behind it. It just gives it some added puffiness to it. is the placement line for the sewing machine. Just about done. So it's now going to stitch, and I'm going to go ahead and I think I'm going to use black. It's going to go around and give some detail on that, on the bottom of the sewing machine. Just add some detail to it, which is kind of cool. Okay, so now it's going to do the sewing machine. So I'm going to change my thread to the color that I'm going to stitch around the outside edge. So this is first is the placement line for my fabric. There it goes. So on the back of the fabric for the machine, I did put fusible woven, or you could use SF101. So I'm going to go ahead and put my fabric down. So now I'm going to go ahead and cut around my machine. And you want to get this probably as close as possible. And I'm going to go ahead and pull it out to get inside of it. Hopefully you can still see this. There we go. Make sure I cut it all. Take my scraps out of there and go ahead and put it back in. And now what it's going to do is going to stitch the satin stitch around, make sure I got that, around the machine. goes about 3 minutes. It's going to actually do a really nice satin stitch around the outside edge. And then I'm going to stitch the detail on the machine. It does the knobs on the machine. I'm going to go ahead and use white for that. And then I'm going to use the metallic to go around the outside edge of that. This is a really cute design. You could use it on, put it on a dish towel, you could put it on a bag, tote bag. You could do all sorts of fun things with it. But with my shirts, I always put a poly mesh, fusible poly mesh on the back. Sweatshirts, t-shirts, anything like that. If I wasn't putting an applique on here, I might use a topper on it, but because I have the applique fabric down, I don't need to use a topper on a knit. It could be fun if you guys have the luminaire or the baby lock. You could do some quilting behind here if you wanted to, which is kind of fun. You could make a mini quilt out of this and put it up on the wall. There's just so many ideas that you can do with this cute little design. Okay, so now it's going to do the detail, and because it's turquoise, I'm actually going to use white on it so you can see it. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch that out. Kind of been fun to do this in gold too. Okay, so now it's going to do all the decorative, like outside edge of the sign or the knobs, and I'm going to do that in pretending that it's metal. I'm going to do it in metallic silver. so it's going to do the chrome on that. And then you stitch the spool thread fill, so that's whatever color you would like, and then the detail on it. And that's going to be difficult for me, but I think I'm going to do it in yellow. Actually, I found some variegated thread. I may do it in variegated because I have a variegated spool of thread up on my machine. I think I'm going to do that. Going to do the needle now. Hence why I did use the metallic thread. So let's try this thread that is, actually it's kind of cool. It's variegated. I don't know how much we'll see of the variegation, but we'll try it out. So it's stitching out the thread. And so now it's going to stitch out the detail on the thread, but I'm going to leave it the variegated thread because it'll stitch out to show that that's what I'm using. That's kind of fun. Okay, so now it's going to stitch the bottom and the top of the spool, and I'm going to go ahead and use black for that. Okay, it's going to stitch the bottom yet. Okay, and now it's going to stitch the pin cushion. And I'm going to go ahead and, surprise, surprise, going to make my pin cushion pink. Oops, I make sure that it's not twisted. Otherwise we'll have a broken needle. Okay, so now it's going to stitch out. And this takes another minute, but it's going to be the, and it's going to be really detailed, which is really cool. Pattern in it. So now it's going to stitch out the bottom of the pin cushion, and here's a decision for me to make, and I think I'm going to go ahead with making it silver like the bottom of the machine. It's a little bit darker, I think, than the background, so I think it'll be okay. And then the next thing after this, it's going to stitch out the pins in the pin cushion. So I'm going to go back to my metallic. So I found this puckered a little bit when it was stitching. That's why I put the fusion fleece behind it, and I was so happy with the way that it looked. You could also use Steam 2 or something like that if you wanted to make sure that you ironed it flat. But I found with the fusion fleece behind the pattern, it actually kept it from wrinkling. So now it's going to stitch the little pins in it. Almost done. The next thing it's going to stitch out is the lettering. And then after that we'll trim, and then it'll stitch the last piece. It's got one more to go. The next one is going to take about 13 minutes to stitch out all the writing. So I'm going to make sure that I've moved everything out of the way. I am going to make it black. I could make it pink, but I think I'll go ahead with the black so you can see it. So now it's going to go ahead and stitch out all the black and then all the lettering. Now, could you change the lettering? Absolutely. And put something else on here with your machine. fun thing to do. Sometimes when I do lettering, I do change the bobbin to black. I'm watching it to see. So far it looks like it's stitching out okay. This is going to take a while. So here's a little secret. You can take an old shirt that you have a stain on or something like that, and you can make it brand new again by doing something like this. This was an old shirt that I had. It's I've had it for a while, and I thought it needed an upgrade, an update. And so that's why I decided to do this on a t-shirt, and which kind of puts new life into it. And so you can take any old t-shirts that you have and do something like this to it, and just makes it all new to wear again. Here's where I need a lint brush. So it's going to stitch all the lettering out, and then I will trim around the outside edge, and then it'll just stitch out the outside edge, and it'll be done. You could use this pattern also, I was just thinking, as a mug rug. Be adorable mug rug. So it's very versatile. This would be fun putting in variegated thread to do the writing too. I was just thinking about that as well. watching it stitch out. I'm wondering if it's going to run out of bobbin. I think I'm going to get ready because I don't know if it has, this is a lot of satin stitching. So all the things that I used was fusible woven or SF101. Fuse and Fleece, which is from OESD, is one of my favorite stabilizers, and also just for the back of things that you want. Have a little bit of depth to it. And then fusible fleece or fusible poly mesh, which is what you put on the back of your t-shirt, just to kind of reiterate. I did use metallic thread, which I just love. All the new colors that Dime has are really pretty. And then I also love the pink scissors that Selima carries here at the store too, that cut around the outside edge. And then various colors. You can have your machine any color you want. Be fun to make a black Singer machine if you wanted to, or a white luminaire with blue. There's a grunge that is really kind of fun. So all the different colors. You can see I use the variegated thread. And they're smart to make it so that you don't cut around the outside edge until you're done. That way the puckers and things like that, it keeps it more balanced and that it doesn't pull as it's stitching all of these, the lettering. Keep seeing little threads. Wait. It's got one more line of stitching after the two more words. more of the writing, and then it's just, I'll cut around it and it'll sew the outside edge. And that one looks like it takes about 8 minutes. Okay, so now it's going about 5 more minutes to finish the last row of stitching. It's very detailed stitching, it really is nice. Moving on. And I used water-soluble sticky it's Aqua Mesh Plus as my stabilizer to put the t-shirt on. And what's nice about that is when I wash the shirt, it'll all disappear, and yet the softness, the stabilizer will have done its job. Got 2 more minutes of the black and the writing. And now it's just got to stitch out sew. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and change it to my gray, because that's what I'm going to use for going around the outside edge. Go ahead and get that ready. And then I'm going to go ahead and take this out and go ahead, hopefully you can see it. I'm just going to cut around the outside edge, making sure that I don't cut my shirt. I'm going to go ahead and take this to the table. So hold on a minute. Let me change cameras. Because it's much easier to have it flat. The hardest part is making sure that you don't cut your shirt. The edge here, and now I'm going to put it back in the machine, and it's going to stitch the satin stitch all the way around. I guess it's like a patch. I'll go ahead and cut this thread, otherwise it's going to drive me crazy. Okay, so I'm going to put it back in the machine, and we'll stitch out the outside edge. So when I put this back in, I want to make sure absolutely positive that the shirt is not underneath anywhere. Okay. So hopefully you can see that. And it's got the gray thread in, and it's going to go ahead and stitch all the way around. Going back the other way. And then it'll probably do a small zigzag that goes around. Yep. should have checked my bobbin, but so far so good while I had it off. Be fun to make for if you had a bunch of friends come over that love to sew. You could do this for a retreat. Have everybody wear this at the retreat. So many fun things to do with this one. Got about 4 more minutes to go. Revs up when it goes around the corners. Now I say that and it won't. There it went. Almost there, 2 more minutes. This one is a lot of sewing, embroidering, but it's worth it. So cute. I cut a little too close there. I should have left it. But I know how to fix that. It's done. Let's change cameras. So here it is on the there, and what I'm going to do is gently pull this off. And then I will cut this off. This is just the poly mesh, the water-soluble poly mesh, which will wash off first time I wash it. As it sticks to itself, it's very sticky. Okay, and then I turn it inside out. As I turn the whole thing upside out, and I just took an old shirt and turned it the right way and made it into a new shirt. So let me do this. I'm going to go ahead and change the camera. And if I stand up, I like to party. And by party, I mean stay home and sew. I have a brand new shirt with the design on it. So hopefully you guys can have fun with it and party along. So I hope you enjoyed this recording, and we will see you next time.